being on Father's Day, I want to show you the cards that I got from my, I got a card from my sister and I got a card from my parents.
Oh.
This one is from,
Wow.
Nice. This one was from my my mom and dad. You know, it's nice.
Yeah.
Then I got a card from my sister, and it's this one. Yep, can't say they don't know me.
No.
Don't talk to your wife that way.
The cat's fucking up our furniture.
Laszlo.
Is this
There it
right?
is.
I want to see my
Hey,
sheet.
buddy. Welcome back to Never Did It. I'm Jake Ziegler, and I'm here with Brad Garoon. Never Did It, we look back at the last 100 years of movie history in an effort to fill in some of our own movie blind spots. Today we're covering the year 1964, and we have a very special guest with us. Joining us once again, is this, I believe, the fourth time, we have Professor Jeff Richardson on the podcast. Jeff, how are you?
I'm terrific. Thanks so much. Happy to be back. I Never Did It.
Well, good. We've got a couple of unique movies that we're gonna talk about today. A couple of very different movies. Do we want to start lighter, or do you guys want to start heavier and go with Failsafe first?
Well, you already mentioned Failsafe, so we might as well talk about it.
Oh, sure. Okay. Get the depressing one out of the way. Yeah.
So I recommended this one. I watched it for the first time like 3 years ago, maybe even less, during my Matthau binge. Came up pretty early in the series because it is one of his more highly regarded movies. It was directed by Sidney Lumet, and it feels very much like a movie directed by Sidney Lumet. If you want to see a movie like 12 Angry Men about something way scarier, starring maybe even sweatier people, this and Dog Day Afternoon are a good way to go. Let's see where to begin. This movie is based on a book called Failsafe, and it had the misfortune of being produced at the same time as Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove, which is very similar in plot and very, 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 very different in tone. And Kubrick and co. sued the crap out of Lumet and co. for trying to produce this movie. These days, we get all the time Volcano and Dante's Peak and Armageddon and Deep Impact, and I guess in the 60s, not so much. They were furious. So Columbia Pictures bought the movie. It was an indie, and Columbia bought it with the intent of probably shelving it, definitely delaying it so that Strangelove could come out first. And then I don't remember why, maybe because Strangelove did so well, this movie did eventually come out the same year, I think, maybe the following year.
It was the same year. Yep.
And it bombed. Sorry, bad pun. It did poorly at the box office.
Strangelove came out in January, and then Failsafe was October. So enough time, to make that decision.
And I think people didn't, after seeing Strangelove and loving it, didn't really want this dire of a take on nuclear warfare. If you've seen Dr. Strangelove, then you know what this is about. But if you haven't, there is a mistake, a technical mistake that happens during a pretty routine day, flying warplanes around, and an American bomber flies past its failsafe point into Russian airspace, and the Pentagon and the Defense Department and the president all have to decide what to do in terms of communicating with their Russian counterparts, and then how do we stop this plane from bombing Moscow, which is what its mission is. And it's no fun at all. There's no joy in this one. It's depressing really from the beginning. And when I watched it, I was really taken by it. I thought Henry Fonda, especially as the president, was incredible. I didn't know much about it when I saw it, and I had some issues with it, watching it from a 2025 perspective, and felt very odd. I'll get into this later, but feeling very odd watching a Jewish director instruct a Jewish actor in Walter Matthau to be the pro-nuclear voice in the movie, not knowing at the time that it was based on a real person. But the performances, I think, up and down are just incredible, and really highlighted by Fonda's tragic president. Jeff, had you seen Failsafe before?
No. In fact, when I was trying to decide which episode I wanted to be on next, I think, first of all, there weren't a ton of options because you guys are nearly done with season 1, which is amazing. I thought this time around I'd pick something I hadn't done on the previous ones. I'm going to pick a year that I haven't seen either film. So whereas last time I was on were 2 films I loved and knew that I loved, this year it's, I hadn't seen either one. So in fact, I had to look up our next film, which we haven't mentioned the name of yet, but I didn't even know what it was. Failsafe, I've been hearing about for decades. I mean, it's just the footnote to Dr. Strangelove. I mean, I learned about it when I was a teenager because it's that well known as sort of the footnote to Dr. Strangelove. So yeah, had not seen it before. And Jake, you hadn't seen it either.
No, this was my Never Did It. Yeah, this movie is incredible. The story, it's Dr. Strangelove, but it could not be any more different in the way it's handled and the way, they're both filmed in black and white, which I think is kind of cool. But yeah, this movie is depressing and dark and feels more, relevant today maybe than it would have like 10 years ago, which is not really the direction we want to be moving in.
Maybe more relevant than it would have last week.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. The way things are going is not promising to, Henry Fonda, watching him wrestle and that relationship he has, because Henry Fonda, what we mentioned, I don't remember the name of the actor, but he has an interpreter, because when he's communicating with the Russian premier and everything, he has to have an interpreter. Those scenes between the two of them are so good and just so tense, and, to watch the interpreter, wrestle with like, oh my God, I didn't realize, what I was getting myself into, because how could he? This is such a catastrophic, almost like world-ending experience. And like just to watch him kind of process that, but still be with them in the moment enough to do the communicating that he needs to do and to do the translating that he needs to do. Those scenes with him and Fonda, I think that's the highlight of the movie. But I loved all the performances, like you said, up and down. I mean, Matthau is incredible in this too. Kind of the contrarian, might makes right viewpoint on that. And he's General Blackie, isn't it? Is he the one who's against him?
Yeah, General Black. So just funny, weird coincidence. I grew up on a street called Blackburn, and I had a black lab named Blackie. I should have seen this when I was a kid to be like, was my dad a big Failsafe fan? What's going on here? We really should say Larry Hagman is the interpreter in that scene, and he would go on to be a huge television star, like one of the biggest TV stars of all time. He was the star of I Dream of Jeannie, and then he was JR on Dallas.
That's right. Yeah,
I've never seen those shows. I've just heard the titles. So that's
you didn't grow up watching I Dream of Jeannie on Nick at Night? It was a huge thing for me. Yeah,
I didn't know he was a big star.
And this was his third movie in his rookie year. He was just starting out when he was in this.
Yeah,
and
he was terrific.
And Blackie Black is he is played by a very famous Irish actor called Dan O'Herlihy, who was before this and would go on into his old age to be in tons of great movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I recognize him.
He has a prior relationship with the president as well, which kind of makes their interactions, especially the resolution of what he ends up having to do, makes it kind of even more heartbreaking and sad. The whole movie is just like it's a big downer.
Jeff, what do you think about it?
Well, yeah, I really liked it a lot. Agree with everything you guys. Well, actually, I have one disagreement with what you guys have said, but I'll get to that in a second. But I definitely was really impressed by it. Go along with you said, Brad. It's just that it's like Sidney Lumet is like just so impressive, and it really makes me want to watch all of his movies, which I've only seen like a very select few. I was looking at it. I mean, I think I've just seen Dog Day Afternoon, Network, 12 Angry Men. Now Failsafe. I'm not sure I've even seen. I think that might be it. But he's got a ton of other, well-known titles. I think those are probably some of the more bigger ones. But he's just impressive. I mean, just from the beginning. Well, the very opening. I mean, it's incredible that they decided to film this like an experimental film with the bullfight and everything. I mean, it's just like puts you on the edge of your seat, and you're like, wow, what are we in for here? This is like going to be a pretty unique ride. Of course, it doesn't continue on in that experimental vein, but it's just like really awesome. And then they do that at the end, but I don't know if we're going to spoil it.
Well, we're going to have to spoil it because we need to talk about Mission Impossible because Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, ripped this movie off so much.
All right. Well, we'll save it then, but we'll get to that. But yeah, it's just, they have some experimental flashes at the end. So it's just like he's just such a talented filmmaker, and then just directing the scenes. I think there was a scene, the third scene of the film, where the corporal or whatever he is like visiting his alcoholic father, and then the general shows up unexpected, and they have that encounter, and then they get back in the car. And it's just such a well-directed scene because you see he wants to bring it up, and then he doesn't know what to say, and he doesn't bring it up, and you're just like, wow, we're really in really capable hands here. And he would go on, in those scenes with the interpreter and Henry Fonda. I mean, it's just like Lumet is just really good, and it really made me want to watch like all of his movies because it's just so well put together.
There's definitely top-tier Lumet, and then a pretty hefty mid-range Lumet, super prolific, pretty much right up until he died. He did a lot of TV work even before 12 Angry Men. 12 Angry Men was his theatrical debut, but he had directed a lot of TV films, and those aren't great. It's actually kind of incredible how good 12 Angry Men is, given how mediocre his TV work was before that. And if you watch the 12 Angry Men teleplay, which came out, I think, just the year before, you can see like Lumet had a lot to work with when it came to his version of 12 Angry Men, which is better. But the teleplay is very, very, very good. And then, Lumet did some weird things. Like he directed The Wiz, which is, I think, really fun, but he was probably not the right guy to do
why? Why did he want to do that? That's hilarious.
Also, later in his career, he directed like Find Me Guilty, which was supposed to be Vin Diesel's like coming out party as a dramatic actor, and that didn't work out.
He's okay in it. To be fair, he's not like terrible in it, but I wouldn't. He shouldn't have broken out, and I'm glad he didn't. But
Well, I'm going to go as far as say that movie's failures are not all Vin Diesel's fault. I mean, like,
Right.
that's just not a great movie. You know, there's a lot of amazing stuff. And I also think The Verdict is kind of overrated, but I'm a minority opinion on that.
Yeah.
I've
I've always
never
wanted to
seen
see
that one.
that. Yeah.
It's long. It's a lot
It's
of.
probably his like next most famous one of the ones we haven't mentioned, probably. And he did Serpico too, right?
He did, yeah. It's funny that he directed Dog Day Afternoon and Serpico. Those are like two very different, very, very different uses of Al Pacino.
Yeah.
In any event, so you have these like three parallel stories, and they're all really compelling. What I loved about, you mentioned the guy being with his parents and being exposed as having these parents that are like, I guess, unbecoming of a officer of his stature, and then that guy completely folds when the pressure's on.
Yeah.
I've gone back and forth the few times I've watched this movie, thinking like, what are we supposed to get from that? Were we meant to take that people who are under pressure at home can't handle the pressure at work? But I've actually come to think that it's meant to be more of a celebrating of Frank Overton's character, the general, who handles that situation really well and like brings him back from the brink and then doesn't judge him and doesn't berate him in front of everyone, but just keeps the ball rolling, the cooperation with the Russians as they're trying to bring down the bomber.
Yeah, I thought it was a weird moment that Corporal or whatever freaks out so much. I mean, I have a few quibbles with the film, and that was probably one of them because he like really loses it, and it's a little melodramatic. But I think the whole thing, you're right, is just we're just supposed to. This is how great of a general this guy, the other guy, is, that he didn't hold it against this guy, and in fact, and now this guy is sort of using that against him somehow, and it's just kind of unfair. I don't know.
Sort of screws with your expectation of what's going to happen. Yeah, Dom DeLuise showing up in that scene is pretty funny.
That's really wild, right? Must be really early for him.
He's super baby, not that fat. It's
I didn't even recognize him, and I mean, until it was over. And I went to go back. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Dom DeLuise was, and then I had to think in my head, like it took me actually like a couple of steps to put it all together.
Yeah, and it's a totally, he plays it completely straight. It's not a funny scene.
He should have been in Dr. Strangelove.
Right? Like that would have made more sense. Like James Earl Jones would have, maybe fit more in Failsafe.
It's crazy you say that because I remember James Earl Jones being in Failsafe. I was like, oh, he's in the plane in Failsafe, but he's not. He's in the plane in Dr. Strangelove.
That's so funny. Gosh.
I was like, where's James Earl Jones?
Yeah. The movies are so similar. Like, can I just say this? It's like I was totally sort of with the way you were setting it up, Brad, where like before I watched the film, I was reading about the Wikipedia page, just kind of like the lawsuit, and I thought, oh, it's kind of weird that they sued, and like nowadays I really thought, I was like, Volcano, Dante's Peak. I mean, that was my frame of reference. I was like, this happens all the time. And then I was watching the movie, and I think by the time before it was over in my head, I was like, oh yeah, somebody needed to get sued here. Like, but
what's crazy is
they're
like
so similar.
But they are based on two completely different sources.
Well, they didn't. You said they sued Sidney Lumet. Everything I read actually said they really sued the authors of the book because they were like, we're basing our movie off a book that came out in like 58. And Failsafe is basing their movie off a book that came out in like 61 or 62. Now, of course, they would not have filed a lawsuit if they weren't both making movies.
Right.
I mean, that was the impetus. But I don't think they were really. I mean, they were really suing the authors of the book and being like, this book is like.
But what came of it was they lost the rights to their own movie.
Yeah, it is nuts. Yeah. It's crazy, but they're so similar. It's hard. I mean, they're going back and forth between the plane and the president talking to the Russians and the base. I mean, there are important differences with but there's so many of the beats are so familiar. It's wild.
So I take it, since neither of you have seen this before, that neither of you have seen the George Clooney remake of this movie.
Mm-mm.
Tried to watch it, but I just didn't have time this week.
Yeah, I watched it. It's bad.
Wasn't it live TV, or am I wrong on that?
No, you're right about that. It aired live on CBS. It was introduced by Walter Cronkite, and it feels very live. Like they make mistakes and then just roll with it. And that is not the problem with the movie. The problem is it is like stripped of all the nuance that makes Failsafe 1964 interesting. Some of that's for time. Matthau's party scene at the beginning of the movie, where you get a sense of who he is in his element, where he's not arguing with Department of Defense officials, that's gone. So you also like miss the bit of his humanity, where you have this Armageddon welcoming woman who's attracted to him sexually, and
weirdest part of the movie.
Very odd scene, but it does show that he's like rejecting of this getting off on death bit, which I think was important for Lumet. I'm almost positive that's not in the book, but it's also not in the Clooney version of the movie. And that character is played by Hank Azaria in the I think it came out in 2000, because Clooney wanted to make it. He produced it, and it was directed by Stephen Frears, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. So Azaria does a good job doing the character, but the character's just much less interesting because he has much less to play off of. And then you've got in the black role, you've got Harvey Keitel, who is so misused, just like doesn't hang with everybody else. Feels very much like it's his first day doing rehearsal for this show. Clooney is the pilot, so of course because of that, the pilot gets way more screen time, and it's just like it makes his decision to ultimately do what he does baffling. Oh, they also completely changed that opening scene with the two pilots where they're talking about how they don't like how everything's changed in the Air Force and they don't trust these machines and this, that, and the other. That's gone. Clooney's just talking about baseball in the opening scene and like how much he loves his son. It's very weird. The real problem, though, is the scene between Hank Azaria and Harvey Keitel. The scene between Matthau and O'Herlihy is great. It gets into stuff that's like very relevant now, like fear of annihilation leading to annihilation. And also that part made me very uncomfortable when I watched Failsafe originally. And you know what? Sometimes you need to feel uncomfortable because that makes you examine your feelings on a subject. If I had seen only the CBS version of this movie, I would never have felt uncomfortable at all because that line is completely changed to being like, what do you think the Russians would do? And he's like, well, in your attempt to stop the Russians, you're becoming like the Russians. Like, that's not what that exchange was about. It was about Holocaust victims becoming aggressive in their defense of themselves. And maybe it was even true of the person that it was based on, that this guy's parents or cousins or whoever were Holocaust survivors, and now he's become this war hawk. And that idea needs to be grappled with, and it is just not at all. And it feels very much like CBS was just worried about what people would say if they were watching it at home and saw this. And it made me wonder, because speaking of Clooney, Good Night and Good Luck, we were saying how we want to be able to watch Good Night and Good Luck. It just aired on CNN.
Did you guys catch it?
No,
yeah, we didn't see it.
We were seeing the Phoenician Scheme, so we missed it.
Yeah, I know that the Matthau character and I think also Dr. Strangelove and Dr. Strangelove are kind of both based on a real person.
Yeah,
or maybe a couple people. But was that guy actually a Holocaust, like a refugee, like a Jewish refugee? I actually don't know. I didn't look up the history.
It's based on Herman Kahn. Herman Kahn was a real like, we should be using nuclear weapons to annihilate the Russians. He's American. His parents were from Poland, and he was raised in the Bronx. So his immediate family was not involved. I want to just like, I do have family that are Holocaust survivors. And so I want to say like, this is not exclusive to Jews who survived the Holocaust. I mean, we see this come up in like South Sudan, where this whole ethnic group was on the verge of annihilation, and then were able to establish their own country. And now the people in charge of that country are waging a civil war with one another because of different ideas of how to handle self-determination. I mean, this is a major human problem that is completely ignored in the CBS version. And even though it made me feel really icky watching it the first time I watched it in Failsafe, I was dying for it in the CBS version, and it didn't come, and then I ended feeling nothing for the movie.
It's disappointing. Yeah, I wanted to seek that out, but I just didn't really have time this week, so
it's not worth it.
I won't bother.
Yeah, it's cosplay, honestly.
Well, were you guys thinking about AI stuff when you were watching this?
Well, no, but I'm glad you brought it up because
I was, and I didn't expect that at all because Dr. Strangelove, it doesn't really go there. I mean, they're so similar, but whereas this one, they kept throwing in lines like technology's moving too fast, humans can't get in, we can't keep up with it, or it needs to leave humans behind, or all this stuff. And I kept like thinking like, if I'd watched this 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been linking this to AI stuff, but because of all the AI stuff the last few years, I was finding new relevance in this movie, which is always kind of cool. So
I didn't, but it's good you brought it up because for one thing, Clooney wanted to make this remake because he was freaked out after Y2K. So it gave him the idea to bring back Failsafe. And then Mission Impossible, the new one, ripped this movie off almost wholesale with their Angela Bassett character and Ron
Swanson. Nick
Offerman and scene that, and that movie is all about the dangers of AI. And I think we can call that the new remake of Failsafe. I'm comfortable.
Okay. Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah. Did you see Mission Impossible, Jeff? Have you seen the new one?
I didn't, but I know some of the beats of I saw the one before. I saw Dead Reckoning, so I know that there's an AI villain, but I don't, I didn't see the new one yet, but I know some of the beats.
Sorry to spoil. And now this is where we're doing a bit of spoilers, a bit of like major spoilers for Failsafe. So fast forward like a couple of minutes. In Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, Angela Bassett, as the AI is threatening to nuke the world, basically, she makes the decision that she needs to nuke an American city. But because Tom Cruise features like don't even want to put a name of a country as a bad guy in Top Gun, God forbid they threaten a city. Like, it's totally hypothetical, but God forbid they threaten a city in the United States. So it's a unknown city or an unnamed city. Whereas in Failsafe, the original, and the whole story of it is that the Americans have decided that the president decides he has to nuke New York in order to appease the Russians after the bombing of Moscow, so that there isn't just escalation nonstop. It's fascinating, and so yeah, I think I really like Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I think the bad reviews are kind of overwrought, and I'm happy with that as like the modern failsafe.
I agree with that 100%.
It's silly for me to even bring this up because it's really just a quibble. One of my biggest issues with the film was one of the things that you brought up as one of your favorite things, Brad, and I think then Jake echoed that. Well, actually, I should modify that a little bit because I really did like Henry Fonda and The Interpreter. I mean, I thought those were some really good scenes, but I just found Henry Fonda's phone acting very stiff. And it kind of ruined the president character for me. And I was kind of, and Henry Fonda is kind of a stiff actor, but he usually makes it work so well for him, like 12 Angry Men. I mean, and he seems to be trying to do this noble leader thing, which which he did in Young Mr. Lincoln, which I've seen, which he's very good in, that he's much younger there. And it, made me think like, this is kind of the modern day equivalent would be like the West Wing, like Martin Sheen, like we're trying to do this like noble president. But when he's on the phone, he just felt so stiff to me. It actually kind of bothered me. And I was kind of like, this is probably my least favorite Henry Fonda performance I've ever seen. So I know you guys, your jaws are dropping.
Yeah.
I was just, it actually kind of like, I liked the movie a lot, but this was like a pretty big knock against it for me to like say like I loved it. I'd actually, wow. I would hold my praise back a little bit because I thought some of the president stuff, it kind of took me out of it. And then when he makes his decision all by himself, by the way, I mean, it's just like president is like, you know what we're going to do?
Well, he's the decider.
Yes, I know he is the decider. He has it's like he has no consultation in there. He's just in this room alone with the translator, which is really bizarre. But, I will let it go for dramatic reasons. But it's like, it just felt a little, I don't know, that part of the movie that I feel a little murky about how much I actually like that, which is obviously kind of a knock. So let me that's just my pushback.
I think I might have a cure for your not liking that, which is watch the remake and see what Richard Dreyfuss does with the character.
Oh no.
Because it's bad.
Okay.
Richard Dreyfuss is like a little snarky and a little annoyed. And I'm like, well, that just doesn't work for this at all. I'm like, are you a little grumpy that you had to come in on your weekend to deal with nuclear annihilation?
Okay, that's fair. That's good. Maybe I will. It really made me, and I know we've done a very good job not comparing the film to Strangelove because it really does stand on its own. But
yeah,
that was one of the few moments where I was really like, gosh, I wish I was just watching Peter Sellers talk to Dimitri, on the other, well, I'm sorry too, Dimitri, versus, Henry Fonda.
He's capable of being just as sorry as Dimitri is.
Yeah. Those are the two scenes that are like exactly the same, pretty much.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm just as sorry as you are. So good. There actually is a really good featurette on the Failsafe Criterion. And thank God Criterion put this out because I don't know how else I don't think it would be, I don't even know if I would, well, I would because I watched every Matthau movie, but I don't think it would be nearly as well known if they didn't do that. But there's a great featurette, just like with Lumet, talking about why he decided to do this. I mean, he was very worried about nuclear proliferation, and that's a hard phrase to say.
Nuclear proliferation.
Yeah, nuclear, not nuclear proliferation. Yeah. He was very worried about it, and so was Matthau. And he talks about, those similarities, and sometimes they play the similar scenes between the two movies, which is very fun. I just don't agree with that. I think it's great. I especially like it because Larry Hagman has to, as he's doing this, and Jake, I loved everything you said about the way Hagman comes to realize what's happening and reacts to it. And like he has the only really physical reaction to this of anyone in the movie. His hands are shaking. He keeps drinking water. The president's cool as a cucumber, doesn't need it. Love that. But what Hagman does that I think is very interesting is when he's translating, he changes his voice. And he starts speaking like this as he's translating the Russian words to the president. And at first, that really bothered me. And that's kind of what I thought you were talking about. And then by the end of it, I was like, no, we do need this difference between Hagman being Hagman and Hagman shutting down his feelings about what's going on and just doing his job and getting the message across, which is another thing that I thought was really cool. It's like his third acting job ever.
He was really good. I mean, I'm not knocking him for my Fonda comments. And to sort of wrap this up, bringing it back to Lumet, where I started, how good is that? There's like one shot in the elevator when you first meet the translator and he like gets in the elevator with the president. And I feel like it's not exactly point of view, but it's almost point of view. And you can see the president's like shoulder, and you just get this claustrophobic, like, oh my God, I'm in the elevator with the president, you know? And it's like Lumet is just so good at like,
Yeah.
that
Let me
stuff,
tell you something. That shot doesn't work when Richard Dreyfuss is much shorter than Noah Wyle. By the way, Noah Wyle does a really good job in the role in the remake, and that's why The Pit is such a success. We've talked about this a lot. I don't know how much we'll have to talk about our next movie, but I'll just start off by saying I enjoyed it quite a bit. Jake, why did you recommend The Moonspinners for us?
Short and simple is that this is like my mom's favorite movie from when she was growing up, and she really liked it, and I'd seen it a couple of times. Watched with Viv, I think, a couple of years ago, my daughter, when she was a little bit younger, and I just remember thinking, yeah, it's a fun, kind of throwback to this era when, the Disney live action movies, when they were making like, stuff like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Swiss Family Robinson and, some of those kind of movies. It kind of had that vibe to it. I just thought it was a lot of fun. And Hayley Mills, we've talked about Hayley Mills on this podcast a bunch of times. It keeps coming up with the Parent Trap trait, Hayley Mills and Hayley Mills. There's only one Hayley Mills in this movie, but one Hayley Mills is still pretty good, and it's it's just a fun movie. It's just like kind of an adventure in a different, it's over in Crete, so it's like an adventure in a exotic type of location, and to put it together with a movie like Failsafe that we talked about, it's nice to have a little bit something a little bit lighter when the first movie is as heavy as that one.
Do you want to tell us what it's about?
I do want to tell you what it's about. It's like I said, it's a bit of a kind of a bit of an adventure. Hayley Mills plays a girl named Nikki. She and her aunt, like I said, are going on a vacation to Crete, and the name of the hotel that they stay at it's called the Moonspinners Hotel. That's where the name comes from. She ends up getting involved with this guy, Mark, who she's like, oh yeah, he's so cute and blah, 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 this and that. But turns out there's more going on with Mark. She finds him shot one night, and then she's like, oh my God, he's been shot. And then it turns into a whole mystery of like, there's like jewels that are being stolen or moved back and forth. That stuff's kind of real. It's just like, it's an adventure. They're going after something. What are they going after? They're going after the thing to make the movie possible. And there's you've got Eli Wallach in it. He kind of plays the main bad guy. He's doing brownface, which is a bummer, but it was 1964, so we're not gonna.
And he did it all the time.
And he did it all the time too, didn't he? Yeah, didn't he do it in the
Good, the Bad, the Ugly?
Yeah, he did that too. So, we're not going to relitigate a movie from 1964 at this point. And he's very good at that.
I didn't realize. I actually, till you guys just said that, I didn't realize he was doing brownface.
Oh, you thought that was a real Greek guy?
I've seen him in The Good, Bad, the Ugly a million times. I didn't realize. I mean, I guess I just forgot.
Yeah, and also if you've seen The Holiday, he's quite white in The Holiday.
Yeah,
right.
Those are like the movies I identify him with. I'm not really sure, what other roles he's in.
I think he's in The Godfather Part 3.
I think you are right.
I've only seen it once, but I'm pretty sure he's one of the villains in The Godfather.
He is. Yep, kind of familiar. Godfather Part 3. He's in Night in the City. Did they remake Night in the City? Yeah, they remade Night in the City.
Oh, well, we'll have to watch that. Did we even talk about that on our Night in the City podcast? Probably not.
Probably not, because I don't remember, because it stars Robert De Niro and Jessica Lange. So I feel like we would have known about that. But yeah, anyway, Eli Wallach's in it too.
Anyway, I thought this movie was fun too. Jeff, what'd you think?
I feel like I liked it a little less than you guys, but I'm not gonna hate on the film. I mean, I really wanted to like it more, and I thought I would like it more because I do enjoy 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I mean, I rewatched that a few years back, whenever Disney Plus came out. And I was like, oh yeah, this movie's fun. And the original Parent Trap is excellent, like Hayley Mills. And I read, it's about this movie's filmed on location in Crete, which from me being on the Death on the Nile podcast, that's a big boost for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was so excited to see this filmed on location in Greece with like a treasure and like this adventure. And I was maybe my hopes were a little too high, but I was a little frustrated with, really basically just the story. I mean, I guess I just wanted more of an adventure. I feel like they were just kind of forcing somewhat unsatisfying set pieces after another. I mean, the windmill thing was pretty cool. They have like a windmill chase, but
the stunt work in the windmill scene is incredible. Like all the old men, big men as Hayley Mills is so good.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was pretty well done. I mean, that was probably the highlight as far as the action stuff for me. But yeah, I don't know. I just got kind of disappointed with the story. I mean, it's like she basically helps the guy get. It's really the boyfriend. I mean, there's a love interest. That she gets involved in. And I felt like, at first you're like, okay, this is going to be fun. He's like this interesting English guy. And actually, no, he's kind of boring. He's kind of dull. Like, he basically spends the whole movie being like, leave me alone. I have to figure out this thing, like, go away. And then at one point she helps him get a first aid kit, which is like a whole sequence that takes like over 5 minutes of screen time. I'm not sure why. And then she really doesn't do she just kind of follows him around. And at the end, she goes out onto the boat to meet the lady to stop the sale, and she doesn't even really succeed in that. And then the love interest shows up to actually deal with everything. I mean, I'm sounding very negative, and I actually didn't mind watching the film, but I just kind of felt I just wanted more of a story. I mean, so I'm a little more down on it than you guys. However, the on location filming was cool when it was actually on location. Hilariously, like the
pickup shots are pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's fair enough. I mean, that's the time period. Of course, they didn't film. They always had to do pickup shots, but there are just so many of them when they're, and then the day for night stuff.
Oh my God.
Bad.
I'm so glad you brought up the day for night, because day for night, I think 99% of the time is poorly done. But here, it's so poorly done that I stopped being able to determine what time things were happening.
Yes, me too. I was like, is it the next morning now? Like, I was confused.
Yeah. It's very confusing because whenever they're in the village, it's nighttime, because that was all filmed on location. It's a great shot. It's a great location. It's a little village on the sea, right? A little restaurant and hotel on the sea. So they have a lot of extras that they use for that. And anywhere there's a lot of extras, it's all done at night because there are these big wedding festivities. That's the backdrop of the movie. And then anytime we leave the village, they have to do day for night, because there's no extra lighting on those waterfront sets. So the problem is it's too exposed. So it seems like it's daytime. But sometimes they go back and forth because the aunt is worried about where Hayley Mills is. So we have to go back in and check with her. She's, by the way, the most useless character in the movie by far.
I did like her performance, though. I like that actress.
I found her really annoying. The first aid scene being overwrought, I thought was worth it, because it gave us the funniest moment in the entire movie when Hayley Mills also grabs a bottle of alcohol off of the bar, and this old lady who's in the bar recording some music sees just the bottle leaving and thinks it's a ghost and like loses her mind a little bit. And hey, you mentioned the windmill thing. That was really cool. I couldn't get over how obvious all the stunt work was in the movie. They weren't even trying to hide it. Like at one point, there's this little boy who's like helping her, because Eli Wallach is, trying to hide these jewels and trying to kill the boyfriend. It's pretty dark for a Disney movie. He is actively trying to murder this guy, and this little boy's helping them. And so when he goes up the windmill, he grows 3 feet to be a stuntman.
That's right. Yeah, it is hilarious.
Yeah, because it's quite an imposing stunt. And then, I actually do agree with you though. So I gave this movie 3.5 stars because the ending kind of fell apart for me. Because nothing on the yacht at the end of the movie made any sense. Hayley Mills shows up. She accidentally gets drunk and then hides in a closet. Eli Wallach finds her anyway. And then the reason that the thing doesn't go through, the reason that the boyfriend is able to clear his name from this jewel theft, is because the cops show up and the woman's afraid that the cops will arrest her. And she's like, I always cooperate with the police. So Hayley Mills didn't actually do anything. It's kind of like an Indiana Jones situation where the plot would have resolved itself even if Indiana Jones wasn't there.
That's true.
But I thought it was fun, despite the racism and the brown face and stuff like that.
Can we talk about the cats?
There were cats in a scene. I thought that was pretty funny.
That was incredible. I mean, let's not undersell how incredible that was. When Eli Wallach tries to go in some sort of ancient crypt, and then he's scared off by feral cats.
Right, so and the one cat diving, legitimately shocked me a little bit.
Yeah. So if anyone is on the fence about seeing this movie because of my somewhat negative comments, but you want to see Eli Wallach scared by feral cats, you should still go ahead and watch this movie. Because
we should mention that this movie was directed, we haven't said it, by James Neilson, who was part of a roster of 5 or 6 guys who were pumping out movie after movie after movie for Disney at this time. Disney was releasing 5 or 6 movies a year like this in the early 60s, some of them for television, a lot of them for theaters. A surprising amount of them had the word moon in the title. Any actor, any effervescent, for lack of a better word, actor from that time period was in one. Peter Ustinov did a bunch of these.
Yeah.
And they were things like Blackbeard's ghost helping a football team win the big game. Or the Treasure of Matacumbe, where he's just helping a bunch of kids go through the jungle. That might be more up your alley, actually, Jeff. Is a movie like The Treasure of Matacumbe.
That's maybe what I'm looking for.
Major Swiss Family Robinson type stuff.
Oh, I love Swiss Family Robinson. That was one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. I haven't watched that in a long time. Maybe I should show it to Viv.
Yeah, for sure. I think that'd be worthwhile. So Jeff, like you, when Disney Plus came out, I also watched 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I mean, Never Did It is a major Douglas family podcast. We're obsessed with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately went to the Kirk Douglas movie. But back then I was like, I'll watch all of these. And then I immediately lost interest in that. But after watching Moonspinners, I'm like, well, this is middlebrow stuff. Maybe, I mean, so is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It just has
I guess it is.
the craziest cast. Douglas and James Mason.
Peter Lorre.
A seal.
You mean a seal? Not seal?
Not seal.
Not
seal.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe I'll watch some more some more Disney Plus.
Yeah, I mean, I like that stuff. It's like the kind of thing you come home and turn on the Disney Channel, and like, oh, the Moon Spinners is on, or like, yeah, Swiss Family Robinson's on, or whatever. Like, it's a warm, fuzzy feeling for me.
That's why I was so depressed when you told me that Pete's Dragon sucks, because that was one of those for me.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, I couldn't believe it. Jeff, are you familiar with the Pete's Dragon?
Yeah, I remember fond memories from when I was a little kid, but you're telling me no.
Bro, it's I watched it when the remake came out, which is like shockingly good. I know those Disney live action remakes, could kind of get crapped on a lot, and most of them fairly, but a couple of them are pretty good. And Pete's Dragon actually is one of them. Robert Redford is in it, and he's classing up everything that he's doing. It was right after like Winter Soldier, so like I was really into Robert Redford, and he's really good in it. And the remake is actually like quite good. But I had watched the previous one because I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, and I watched it when that came out. So it was like 2016, I think. But I was shocked. And like it's long and it's boring and it's like super like psychedelic. I did not understand what was going on in that movie at all. It was one of the more shocking like revisiting a movie experiences I've had.
So when the new Barbarella comes out, I don't think you're gonna like the original. Sounds pretty similar. Yeah. And then like movies like Candy. I mean, there's a lot of cool like psychedelic movies from there. But then there's also things like El Topo, which is to me completely impenetrable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know I've never done LSD, so I don't know what's going on.
Same. Yeah, I've never been to Burning Man, so
Right. Do we want to do our top films? I'm assuming because of all the legal troubles that Failsafe had, and then this being Moonspinners, there's no Oscar stuff for these.
No Oscars for either of them, unfortunately. Yeah. But of course, Dr. Strangelove did very well that year. Was nominated for picture and director and screenplay, and I think one other, maybe like editing or something like that. But definitely picture and director for sure.
Not the movie we're talking about.
No, it's not. But worth mentioning.
Well, so
rare time the Oscar went for the comedy over the drama.
That's uncommon. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mm.
All right, so let's do our top lists of 1964. Before we start, I just want to say we're recording this on Father's Day, and I talked to my father-in-law about what we were about to do, and he was like, "Oh, 1964, I just watched Kwaidan, the Japanese horror film." He said, "It's incredible." And I was like, "I'm so mad I didn't watch that before this, because that would be great for my top 10, but it's not in here now." But I do have a top 10. Do either of you have a top anything?
I got a top 10.
5.
You got 10, you got 5. All right, I'll go first. Couple of quick honorable mentions. I always talk about how much I don't like Antonioni. My introduction to him was a movie called The Red Desert, which came out in Italy in 1964, which is interesting because it stars Richard Harris, but not his voice, because it's an Italian film. It's an Italian guy's voice. And it's pretty boring, but it's an interesting story. And then my other honorable mention is Ensign Pulver, which is the sequel to the John Ford movie, Mr. Roberts, which stars Jack Lemmon. This sequel stars Walter Matthau, who took William Powell's role from the first movie. And it's just like a Navy comedy. It's kind of amusing, but pretty stupid.
The original also stars Henry Fonda.
It sure does, as the eponymous Mr. Roberts.
And he actually is doing that same sort of like, I'm the moral, hold me up as sort of the moral paragon sort of character.
I can't believe you've seen it. It's so boring.
I have a soft spot for Mr. Roberts, though. I wouldn't defend it because it's really too long and it's kind of hokey, but I don't know. I have a soft spot for that movie. So
Ensign Pulver is also interesting because Jack Nicholson has a cameo in it, like a very small role. My number 10 is a movie by Vincente Minnelli called Goodbye Charlie. This stars Tony Curtis and Debbie Reynolds. I am shocked this movie hasn't been reclaimed as like a trans story, because the story is Tony Roberts' buddy, Charlie, the eponymous Charlie, dies, and then his soul inhabits Debbie Reynolds' body. And everyone is really hot for Debbie Reynolds, not knowing that inside she's a man. And it is shocking to me that people haven't discovered this and like reappropriated it as like a trans allegory, which it absolutely could be. And I, of course, watched it because Walter Matthau is the bad guy, doing a really gnarly. He's playing a Greek American gangster with like a completely unforgivable lisp. It's insane. My number 9 is The Moonspinners. It made the list. I liked it a lot. My number 8 is The Beatles' A Hard Day's Night, directed by Richard Lester. I'll let y'all say more about it. I think you have fonder feelings for it than I do. My number 7 is a very, very important movie in the kaiju universe, Mothra versus Godzilla, directed by Ishiro Honda. These early Godzilla movies are sometimes pretty rough. This one's pretty great. And there's a reason I think that Mothra has gone on to be such a staple of the Godzilla movies going forward, thanks in huge part to a really successful first movie. But also these characters, these like little pixie lady characters that accompany Mothra everywhere he goes that aren't in the new movies, which I think is a miss. And I hope that they Now that these movies are getting a little goofier on the American side, I hope they come in. My number 6 is Mary Poppins. Speaking of Disney, so this one was directed by Robert Stevenson, who was also like on the Disney payroll at the time. And I don't need to tell you about Mary Poppins. You know about Mary Poppins. It's a classic. My number 5, is that where I'm on? Yeah. My number 5 is Goldfinger, the last in the original James Bond trilogy that maybe probably should have stayed a trilogy as far as the Sean Connery movies are concerned, because that fourth one was a stinker. But Goldfinger is incredible. It's directed by Guy Hamilton. My number 4 is A Fistful of Dollars, which is the first in the Man with No Name trilogy by Sergio Leone. Incredible movie. What's his name? Eastwood is kind of doing a different thing in this one than he does in the later ones. He's a little less gruff. And granted, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is like kind of a comedy, but this one is like, it's very efficient. It's only 100 minutes long and real easy to watch. And it's actually really fun to watch if you watch it right after Yojimbo, the Kurosawa movie that it's based on, because Leone makes some interesting changes. My number 3 is Kaneto Shindo's Onibaba. We did a whole episode about it, but it came out in Japan first, so it shows up on my list here. But listen to our whole episode if you want to hear me talk about Onibaba. Thank you, A.L. Cohen, for bringing me back an Onibaba mask from Japan. That's now in my movie room. My number 2 is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Stopped Worrying and Learned to Love the Bomb, which we've talked about quite a bit on this podcast. And my number 1 is Failsafe, which is the same movie, but serious.
All right. I actually, I can do like a top 7 because I have 7 movies from 64 and I liked all of them. So I'll hit you with my top 7. And number 7, we talked about quite a bit, The Moon Spinners. Yeah, just great fun, good nostalgia for me. And I love Hayley Mills. I can just love her whole thing. So that's a good one for me. And number 6 for me is Mary Poppins. Again, classic. Really love Mary Poppins. My number 5 is, again, that we talked about at great length, is Failsafe. Feels weird to have it that low because I really, really think it's a great movie, but I have some personal feelings for the later films on my list. I kind of have a weird tie with number 3 and 4 because, as Brad and I argue about all the time, I go by U.S. release dates on things, and there were 2 James Bond films that actually came out because Goldfinger and From Russia with Love both came out in the States in 64. From Russia with Love was in April, and then Goldfinger was in December. So those both make my list, and I think they're both great. I really love both of them. I think they're like the best of the Connerys and amongst the best of the entire series. So that's kind of like a tie for me with like 4 and 3. It's hard for me to put one over the other because I like them both. Probably From Russia with Love I would prefer, maybe because there's less like ickiness in it. Like Sean Connery's pretty rough in Goldfinger when it comes to the women, and I think there's a little bit less of that From Russia with Love. So
and From Russia with Love, he's like kind of just an asshole, and he's also like kicking a lot of ass in From Russia with Love. So
I love
it is kind of the cooler movie.
The train fight alone too is like one of the best things, like probably one of the best things Connery ever did as Bond. So From Russia with Love, we'll go Goldfinger 4, From Russia with Love 3 if pressed, but yeah, I really like both of them. And my number 2, Brad, as you alluded to, Beatles Hard Day's Night. I adore this movie. I've seen it so many times. Used to watch it with, you guys know Sean Rising and his dad Greg. Used to watch it with Greg over at his house, who's no longer with us unfortunately, but I just have a lot of fond memories of this movie, and just it's so funny. Like the Beatles themselves are just so funny and just so, but like quietly funny. I mean, there's some bigger gags in this movie, but like some of the smaller things with Paul's grandpa and everything, there's just so many funny little bits in this movie, and it really captures, I think, that moment, when the Beatles were becoming the biggest thing in the world. I think this movie is a really good like encapsulation of their personalities and what people liked about them, and it's just, like I said, it's just funny and it's fun. It's really enjoyable. My number 1 is Dr. Strangelove, which, has been one of my favorite movies probably ever since the first time I saw it, which I'm pretty sure actually I saw thanks to Jeff Richardson. I'm pretty sure you saw it before me. I feel like I remember you getting me on the Kubrick train. But yeah, Strangelove is just almost every line of that movie is insanely funny. The performances, Sterling Hayden and Peter Sellers and George C. Scott. It's just absolutely fantastic. I mean, my wife and I will say all the time now, she has a bulletin board that she does at work for like monthly, like here's the holidays and here's this and that. She'll always send me a picture of it and she's like, hey, look up at the big board. Everything now is the big board always. So like, it's I love Strangelove. I mean, if I'm making a top 10 or 15 of all time, that's gonna probably be on there.
You guys didn't watch it in school?
Strangelove?
No.
Oh, they showed it to us in school.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No,
they not at all. That's interesting.
I think they were like, this is a palatable way to get kids scared about nuclear proliferation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Great list. I have a top 10, and I was just going to honorable mention Hard Day's Night because I remember liking it, but I saw it like 20 years ago. I'd like to watch more Richard Lester movies. He seems like he has some fun stuff. I was also going to honorable mention The Killers, the Don Siegel action movie, just because they had a cool Lee Marvin performance. Alfred Hitchcock's Marnie, which is deeply flawed, but just kind of really interesting and fascinating, sort of Freudian now kind of inappropriate, but a movie from with Sean Connery and Tippi Hedren, and they both look amazing. And then Failsafe is really my number 11, probably. And if I'm taking nostalgia out of things, maybe it would even be my number 9. But my number 10 is Mary Poppins, which I haven't seen in a long time, but I still know all the songs, and it's just like a huge part of my childhood, so I have to have it in here. And then similarly, another musical that I have very fond feelings for, My Fair Lady. I know all those songs. I remember seeing that movie when I was younger, and I've seen it multiple times. And Audrey Hepburn is just incredible, and Rex Harrison is incredible, who, by the way, I recently read an article that mentioned Rex Harrison, and he was a total asshole, like shockingly, like hilariously total POS. So that was kind of fascinating to find out. But number 9, My Fair Lady. My number 8 is 7 Days in May, which is John Frankenheimer thriller, which fits right into the Failsafe, Dr. Strangelove, Manchurian Candidate, whatever, all these sort of Cold War paranoia sort of, thrillers that were going on at the time. And this one's about a military coup. So I highly recommend it. It's got Burt Lancaster, Ava Gardner, Kirk Douglas. And I saw it about 7 or 8 years ago now, so my memories are starting to fade a little bit, but I remember being super impressed by 7 Days in May and thinking it was felt very relevant today. So if you're want to see more things maybe in that Failsafe Manchurian Candidate vein, check out 7 Days in May. Another Burt Lancaster movie and another John Frankenheimer directed movie are my number 7. Big year for those guys. The Train, an action movie set in World War II. Well done, really fun, exciting. Basically about some guys trying to. I can't remember if Burt Lancaster is playing an American or if he's playing a French soldiers, because the real story is I think these French soldiers were trying to stop the Nazis from stealing important artwork out of France. And so it's like the artwork is eventually loaded onto a train and they have to stop the train. And so, or maybe they're trying to save it out of the train. It's been a few years, but anyway, good 60s action movie, which I think is kind of hard to do, because I remember for our 61 podcast, I rewatched Guns of Navarone, and I was deeply disappointed with an action movie from that same time period that I remember liking as a teenager. My number 6, 5, and 4 are all good movies, but also kind of nostalgic because they were part of series that I loved since I was a teenager. 6 is A Shot in the Dark, the second Pink Panther movie, but really the first real Pink Panther movie, because it's really the first one that solely focuses on Inspector Clouseau, who is played by Peter Sellers. Terrific comedy, love that. Number 5, Goldfinger, huge James Bond fan. You guys both had, I think Brad had it at 5. Jake, you had it right around there. And my number 4 is, just like Brad, Fistful of Dollars, also number 4. I actually rewatched it this week. It's the only movie I rewatched in preparation for this podcast because I hadn't seen it in so long. And I sort of felt bad that I hadn't rewatched Yojimbo when I put it on my list for our 61 episodes. So Fistful of Dollars was incredible. I actually moved it up after rewatching it because it's just, I remembered everything that was going to happen. I didn't know that I would. It's just such a great movie. And then 3, 2, and 1 are just like 3 of my favorite movies. I couldn't believe this year when I looked it up. Umbrellas of Cherbourg, Jacques Demy's musical. This is my 3rd musical on this list. I just can't, it's just colorful, beautiful. And if you haven't seen the movie, I won't say what goes on, but it's just one of the most memorable endings of any movie. And I just get kind of emotional thinking about it. So terrific French musical, Umbrellas of Cherbourg, number 3. Number 2 is a movie that is criminally underseen called Night of the Iguana, directed by John Huston, written by Tennessee Williams, based on his own play, starring Richard Burton, Ava Gardner, again, on this list. Lots of people, multiple things on this list. Deborah Kerr, Sue Lyon from Lolita is the only other movie I've ever seen her in. And it's basically set in Mexico. Richard Burton plays a defrocked priest who's got a busload of tourists, and he's giving ends up getting in trouble with having a relationship with Sue Lyon, who's underage, and he kidnaps the bus and takes them to a seaside hotel where he has a friend played by Ava Gardner. It's madness. I mean, this movie's insane. It's hard to really. It's a drama. It's not a comedy, but it's just one of the best dramas. And I remember being floored by it when I saw it 5 or 6 years ago. Gosh, I wish I could give it a better pitch because nobody's seen this movie. But when I saw it, I was like, that's just one of my favorite movies. And I was sure it would be number 1 on my list, but then I realized Dr. Strangelove came out this year. So one of my favorite movies of all time. Jake, I remember we probably did see a lot of Kubrick movies together. And my memory is this was the movie that more than any other movie got me interested in learning about the history of movies. So all credit to Dr. Strangelove. I just have a memory of watching it and sort of, I knew that film directors were a thing. I mean, I watched the Oscars a few times probably. I knew Steven Spielberg was, but for some reason when I saw Dr. Strangelove, I was like, this is so incredible. Who is this Kubrick guy? And then I looked up all the movies he'd made and I had tried to watch, and it was really the first time I ever did that kind of an auteur project where I was like, this is the guy with a vision and I want to see all his movies. And it's all because of Dr. Strangelove.
I'm just going back to Night of the Iguana for a second. Warner Archive did release it on Blu-ray, so it is out there being seen, and it's only $17. So if you want to snap that up, that's a pretty good price. So that'll do it for 1964. We'll be back next week. Jeff's got one more thing.
Yeah, I got one more thing to say, just because I know you guys are almost done, right? You're pretty much wrapped up. So this will be the last time I'm on, at least see what you're now calling season 1. Mm-hmm. So because nobody else is going to be able to do this, I just wanted to say congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
I really enjoyed listening to this podcast. You guys did it. I mean, you set out to these 100 years, and it's been a terrific listen. I've listened to every episode, and I just want to commend you guys for making a good show. So it's just a good idea, well executed. So kudos.
Thank you. Thanks for being a part of it.
Thank you.
We'll announce in, I think, just like 3 weeks what we're doing next after a very short break. Yeah, we're stoked. But for next week, we are going to be covering a couple of films that are very different from each other. From the year 1980, Jake, bail me out.
6.
Thank you. See you then.